In the quiet grounds of Barbados, there stood a man whose impact stretched far beyond the boundaries of the game. Today we continue to journey through the untold stories of a mentor, a coach, and a father figure. Keith Boyce, the cricket coach whose influence transcended the pitch. This week we continue that journey of the life, work and legacy of the late Keith Boyce. A very warm welcome. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for joining us. In previous episodes we were told of his unwavering support for and dedication to the youngsters he coached and whose lives he influenced positively. This week we will learn of his family life and his untimely passing. Here is daughter, Kathy Goodman.
Let me first state that I'm the first daughter, and everybody that knows me would say that I look like my dad. Yeah, my sister behaves like my dad, but I look like my dad. I grew up in England when my father played cricket for Essex, and those were good memories. I thought at that time my father was the tallest and biggest man in the world. As 6 years old, 7 years old, I used to marvel at the attention that my father used to gain. He could draw a crowd. I was aware of that from very young. I didn't watch much of the cricket. I used to spend most of my time selling scorecards at the gate. That was fun for me. But even then, it was important for my father. One thing about him, he was always punctual. And one of his favorite sayings was, "Who ain't ready, left." And he meant it. If you weren't ready, he's gone. He will not be late. And that's exactly what I told my daughter when we were going to school. When she was going to school, I used to say to her, "Zaidi, who ain't ready, left." But going back to my father, he taught me so much.
He loved his daughters. Persons always teased him about having boys, but he was happy with his 2 daughters. He felt his daughters could do anything that a boy could do, and we could play cricket, football, very good with our ball, handling skills and stuff. I would have played netball for a number of years, and he always encouraged us to do our best. Even in our garage where we lived in Rockdunder Park, we had a road tennis court. We used to play there all night long, and he just involved us in everything possible.
Growing up in England, we had in the garden, there was a rose path. Both sides, a very small path. And my father used to throw balls at me. And if you went left and you missed the ball, you fall in the rose, on the rose bush. If you went right, he threw it right, and you missed that ball, you are in that. So Kathy was not going there. So he taught me also to ride. And I was able to ride very early because I didn't want to fall in those rose bushes.
And you had to make sure that you cut back or not you would get the ball in your toes. So my sister and I, we could definitely defend the ball. We can definitely catch a ball. So, it was always good with my dad.
Later on, I used to observe him talking about cricket. He really loved cricket, and he loved his daughters. And my sister always felt that he was a favorite, and secretly I always thought I was a favorite, but he really showed no difference in the two. He loved both of us equally, I'm sure.
He was the first person I heard on mornings and the last person at night. He made sure he contacted us. Even when I was working, he would pass by just to see if I needed lunch, anything like that. And we love sports, so I was always with him. They always knew me to be the one to ride with him everywhere. I would go to cricket every possible weekend. We discussed cricket on a whole. So my love for sports came through him. My dad was loud. You knew when he was around, but I found he was a people's person, and he just spoke to everybody possible. Everywhere we went, we were always stopped by people. People want to talk to him, you know, and get to know about his exploits.
I met Keith while I was working at Barclays, and he used to come back from overseas playing for Essex, and he would be in the bank for long hours talking to Baldwin Edwards and Blackburn and Andrew Campbell about cricket. And Mr. Humphrey, he had a gas station, and they used to play cricket, so they taught beer cricket. So after the bank closed, he would be still in there, so everybody would be talking about cricket. And then when I went to work at, that was at Barclays Spice Town, I went to work at Broad Street, and he used to come in the bank to bring deposits for Kurt Stall Limited. He would chat with all the people in there about cricket. It was cricket, cricket, cricket. And then we got married only in '94, and he died in '96. But everything was cricket, cricket, cricket. But I loved cricket too, so it was nice, you know, with good chat. I like this body and I like the next body to be playing and things like that. So he could have cooked. Well, he liked rice, cook up with okra, saltfish, cabbage, and things like that. He loved that. Cook up with vegetables.
Yes, he could cook very well, actually. His dish was soup, and with a lot of pigtail. And that was our joy, my sister and I, when we spent weekends with him on Friday nights. It was to watch wrestling and to drink soup with my dad on Friday nights. So that was our joy. My sister, we would come over on Friday nights and we would just spend time with him. But that he could cook, definitely could cook. He loved to eat. He loved to dine out, definitely. He liked to try new things. He loved steak. He really enjoyed that, you know, to eat out and try new things. We would go to Baxter's Road late at night, those sort of things, putting on sauce. One person he would only eat sauce from was that corner shop in Diamond Corner, Fred All. Fred All had his pudding and sauce there for him every Saturday. So, you know, someone would pass and pick it up, or he would go for it, and that would be delivered at the cricket ground. And all the boys partake of it. So, I mean, yes, he was known for that. And he could bake, he could do all things. He was multi-talented. He never put down a challenge.
And he liked watching TV.
He loved the wrestling, keep noise all during the wrestling.
Sports, football, tennis. And, you know, we would have discussions. I would say I don't know much about football, I don't know much about tennis, but we could discuss the cricket. But he liked watching movies too. He had a lot of movies.
His death on his 53rd birthday came as a shock to his family, his colleagues, and his friends.
The week before he died, he went to the doctor. He said he had a pain in his stomach. The doctor said it was gastro. And then the next week, I went to sleep and I got up, I saw him sitting on the bed, and he said, I haven't slept for the night, and that he was vomiting. And I said, the gastro doing you like that? And I made some tea, some sort of tea, and I went back to sleep. And he went back to sleep, but then he said he wasn't feeling well. So I called Therese. I said, Therese, your daddy didn't feel well, but he said he ain't going back to no doctor.
Actually, it was his birthday, and only my father would do that, die on his birthday. And that morning, his usual call to me, he called and I said, you couldn't wait till I call you and wish you happy birthday. And he said, To. He's the only person allowed to call me To. I'm not feeling well, I need to go to the doctor. And I know my dad hated the doctor, so I knew he really needed me. So I got ready and I went with him. Even when we went into the room, he was telling the doctor, tell him what's wrong with me. I'm like, I can't tell him because I don't know.
I got a call from Bobby Goodman, said that Keith collapsed. And then about 10 minutes after, he said he was dead.
And
Just like at the pharmacy in Spicetown. Because he was going to collect the medication again for gastro. But it was a heart attack. When Therese was there, and Fergie was getting the medication, and because he had just shouted, and Therese told me he had just shouted and tell somebody something, and he started to snore, and she called Fergie, and Fergie put him to lie down, and he ran out by the doctor that was next door, Simon, and Simon said he was having a heart attack. So probably the week before these symptoms, there were signs of heart problems, but the doctor said it was gastro.
At that time I was building a house about the center of the hospital. I was getting ready to go look for pick up my tools. My next door neighbor come up and said to me, how did you do in? He said, boy, I got news for you. I know how you're going to take it. He said, he left your man in pharmacy and I don't dead. I go, my man. He said, KD. Means call you D. So my wife was next door standing up. She said, well, how much? I said, tell me D dead. She said, who D? I said, not really. Because my last son used to call you D, and he was working at CDS. So he didn't leave home for work that morning. He ain't going through me, Keith dead. Then your mother come in and said, I know you can take it, but that is true. I took up an umbrella, and I walked down the road. And I get by the bottom shop. The proprietor, Fred Hall, said to me, boy, I get a message that I look and said, your man dead. Now still hit me. I got him, said I to come down. And when I get down, the lights down, I see the crowd down there. I said, well, boy, something happened. When I got there, his wife there was in the door standing up. Peter Haynes, and Sally the turn-up man, and Fergie, drugstore man. And I gone in. His head was facing and the foot facing the bus stand. His daughter, Therese, was down on the Rodney. I went in and feeling, he still kind of warm. I walked by, stand up there till two sons come and moving from there. I just can't believe Katie died. I came back by Fred, and I drink gin from there till night. And it went down like water. But when I lay down at night, tears start to come down without resistance. His death hit me more than my father or mother. I'm telling you that.
His death was a shock to us because the afternoon he was coaching, and the next morning when I got up I heard rediffusion announcing Keith Boyce, Keith Boyce, Keith Boyce. I said, Keith Boyce? What are they talking about Keith Boyce for? And then I realized, he's dead. Apparently, well, his wife would tell you the story.
In fact, he had coached the schools north at the Thursday afternoon.
And then this happened?
The Friday.
Oh. Must have been a shock for you.
Shock to everyone.
And of course, it was a great shock to all of us that a man could be living and healthy. As a matter of fact, he said to me that afternoon that he had a friend in the hospital who had to go and visit. Of course, he never got to see his friend. He was a good example for our schoolboys.
Today's Look at the World of Sports, BET Sports World.
Well, Mark, a large chunk of the sports news devoted to cricketing great Keith Boyce.
Yes, that's right. As you may have heard earlier in the evening news, former Barbados and West Indies cricketer Keith Boyce is dead. He died this morning in Spicetown after collapsing in a pharmacy. Boyce was the first man to do the double of reaching 1,000 runs and 100 wickets in limited overs cricket in England. The news of his death spread around the country quickly, as several people converged on the small establishment where Boyce's body laid. He was at cricket practice with the Combined Schools North team just last evening, so the news of his death came as a big shock. Friends and associates of Mr. Boyce, who were in contact with him hours before he died, say he wasn't feeling well from last night. He went to the doctor this morning and collapsed at a nearby pharmacy afterwards. This was around 8:15 this morning. Some of his friends who were in Speightstown had several stories to tell about Bama Boyce. He was known in the north as Bama. Also paying tribute to Mr. Boyce was Tony Marshall, the president of the Barbados Cricket Association, of which Keith Boyce was a board member.
I'm sure the entire cricketing fraternity in Barbados, the Caribbean, Essex County, and indeed the world is saddened and shocked on learning of the death of Keith, a former Barbados and West Indies cricketer. Keith was a selector and a member of the board of the Barbados Cricket Association. He started his career as a leg spinner, but developed and was known internationally as a fiery bowler, a hard-hitting batsman, and renowned for his untiring enthusiasm on the field. He was well liked at Essex, and there in his maiden first-class match, he took 9 wickets for 61 runs against Cambridge University. He made his test debut in 1971 against India. In first-class cricket, he scored 8,800 runs and took 852 wickets. He played in 21 test matches for the West Indies, scoring 657 runs and captured 60 wickets. Today, he would have celebrated his 53rd birthday, and one cannot help but feel the pain that his family must be suffering.
One of his last engagements was the banquet held in Jamaica by the West Indies Cricket Board. West Indies cricketers, past and present, were honored for their contribution to the sport. Mr. Boyce, in an interview with CBC's Andy Thornhill, expressed his delight at the gesture by the WICB.
I'm very happy actually to see all the friends I play with, and especially the Virtus. He is very emotional about it. And, it makes you very excited. You keep on asking how is Lawrence Rowe. People say he's okay, but seeing him in person means something different to us actually.
What does in fact seeing people like that do to you? Do you remember bowling somebody down, somebody knocking you around, having the better of you, and vice versa?
I remember actually the last trip that I made to Australia with Lawrence Rowe. That was the only trip that he completed with me. And coming home, he actually was in tears. He said, Boyce, you know, this is the only trip I completed with you. So he had problem with his eyes and his foot and everything. And it really go back to those days.
Keith Boyce put a lot of time and energy into youth cricket. He was the coach of the Barbados youth team, as well as the side which represented the Combined Schools North.
This is something that I thought I missed a bit in our coaching. That's very important in which area you're on the field, whether it's wicketkeeping, batting, fielding. These plays the most important part. These must be on the line of the ball at all time for you to be successful. As you move that, it can be dangerous. And your stroke play, and your keeping, and your catching, and your feeling, ground feeling is important that this is as quiet and always focused on the cricket ball.
Keith Bama Boyce, a former Barbados goalkeeper, a former Barbados, West Indies and county cricketer, and a cricket administrator, dead at 53.
His death was really tough for me. I tried to be strong at that point of time because of his teachings. You know, he said, well, no, coach gone. Yes, there's a reason he's gone, but I'll be here. But it really had a big toll on me. I thought, really and truly, I lost my way a bit because of that, because you didn't have that person there who genuinely cared. You didn't have a person there who will see you say, you know something, know your weaknesses, know your strengths. You didn't have that person there to help motivate you. And on the topic of motivation, I can remember one of my last conversations with Coach. And I just said that's something that really.
Former Test cricketer Keith Boyce will be laid to rest tomorrow at St. Philip the Less Anglican Church, Basketball St. Peter. This morning, the body was at his old school, Corrigan Parry. The immediate family led the procession of mourners from around 9:30.
The procession was pretty slow at the beginning, and then about an hour later, we had quite a pretty heavy traffic up till we had to extend it the hour by half an hour. And we had a very good crowd. I think the signature book now is about 500 signatures.
At 6:45 a.m., the body leaves St. John's Funeral Home for Basketball's Community Center. There will be a procession from there to the church. From 8 a.m., there will be tributes, and the funeral service will begin at 9 a.m.
Hundreds of Barbadians said their final farewell to former Barbados and West Indies cricketer Keith Boyce, who was laid to rest today. Sean Green reports.
From as early as 7:30 this morning, the body of the former West Indies all-rounder Keith Boyce left the Basketball Community Center. Members of the Barbados Cricket and Football Association, the Barbados Cricket League, past and present West Indies players, the Castle Diamond Corner Basketball community members, and the official pallbearers all shared in the bearing of the body. Barbados and West Indies cricketers, administrators, friends and family made up most of the assembly. Barbados Prime Minister Mr. Owen Arthur, who is also the parliamentary representative for the area, as well as several other dignitaries, were present. Committee member of the YMCA Cricket Club and the son-in-law of Boyce, Hugh Bobby Goodman, gave the eulogy.
Perhaps you started to wonder if Keith was anything more than a fierce competitor, a personification of the perfect athlete, a gentlemanly sportsman, but one capable of doing well in any sport which was dependent on speed, rhythm of movement, and sharpness of the eye.
At the graveside, several hymns were sung, as everyone witnessed the laying to rest of a great sportsman. Keith David Boyce. He will be missed, but not forgotten. Sean Green for CBC Sports.
I think his death hurt junior cricket in Barbados.
The trials that I went through in terms of cricket and the trials that I go through now, that's why I'm a bit more successful now in what I may feel now than when I was at cricket, because I couldn't motivate myself. And the only one that could have motivated me was my coach. And that's why and I said, it didn't really happen to me, it happened to a lot of guys, because we had tremendous talent. I mean, when you see cricket now and see the talent of the players back then and now, gosh, these guys, I had guys with tremendous talent. The level that we were at 13 and 14, you guys aren't know, but we didn't have that motivation. The only motivation we had was coach. And he passed and he left us in a at the crossroads. I just said, created a big void. And the only thing that void can be filled now is if we together, collectively, and you can understand this, we have to do it collectively, not even as one. And this is one man that could produce and deliver. All right? But it take all of us collectively to really fulfill what his dreams are. But I could guarantee you, if he was alive, this one man could produce and deliver the dream that he had.
He was a father figure to those guys, especially a guy named Ray Hurdy and a guy named Antonio Hurdy, two brothers. They were very, they liked him a lot. And when he passed away, you could see that the cricket drop off a little. Not much, but drop off a little.
And I remember the last thing he said to me. He had this great interest in Corey Cullimore, and he said, if anything happens to me, I want you to look after Corey Cullimore for me.
I can remember one of my last conversations, and it was about same motivation. I can remember he was taking me home. My team was living in Basketball, and coach just pulled a car just off the highway. So I was like, coach, something wrong? He said, he just needed to talk to me. And he said, coach, you could talk to me. He said, I just need you to learn to motivate yourself. And I was like, I said, coach, I could. He said, no, Donnie, you need to motivate yourself. Because when you can motivate yourself, right? When you can motivate yourself, there's nobody out here that can touch you. There's no one out here that can break you. When you get to that level, there's no one that can stop you. There's no one can break you. Actually, it took me a while because I guess I was like 19, 20 at that time. And it's only after a while that it took me, I really understood what he was saying. When you are doing well, technically you don't really need people. It's when you are down. It's when you need to be, that's when most people just go their way. But Coach was never like that. He was one who also stuck by you. But I guess he knew he was near, and it was like, it's only after his passing that I was like, Coach had to give me that message. And that really, really, I mean, really touched me and really break me down.
Well, with heartfelt sincerity, Donovan Lopez has described how Coach Keith Boyce's plea to find inner motivation echoed in his mind, driving him to overcome challenges and to persevere in the face of adversity. No doubt that's a fine example of one fruit of that transformative journey started by Coach Keith Boyce, which was marked by growth, resilience, and a newfound sense of purpose. The series continues next week at the same time. I'm Sherwood McCaskey.